Some Hornets NBA trade rumors, they are floating about. We try to make sense of it all here on Locked On Hornets just a day before the NBA trade deadline. That's all still to come.
You are Locked On Hornets, your daily Charlotte Hornets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
In a minute, cuz we live.
It's Locked On Hornets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making us your first listen. We're free and available anywhere you get your podcast. That includes YouTube. There's Doug Branson, everyhornetsboxscore.com. You can also go to that website and find his subtext information. Listen to him as well on Locked On NBA. I'm Walker Mail. Listen to me, WFNZ, every weekday from 12 to 3 p.m. And a couple things to take care of real quickly. This episode is brought to you by Game Time. Game Time?
Game Time.
Everybody's favorite. It's Game Time, baby. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Plus, we do have a newsletter, the Locked On Hornets Daily Newsletter. Sign up for free right now, LockedOnDaily.com. LockedOnDaily.com. Start your day with the all-new free Locked On Hornets newsletter. Maybe you're writing about trades, maybe not, but I do know names are swirling about. Let's get to the big one here, LaMelo Ball. Brett Siegel of Clutch Points puts this out on Twitter within the last couple of days. Players like LaMelo Ball and Paolo Banchero were also featured on a list about Golden State talking internally about who they might want to go after, even if they never reached out to Charlotte. They were talking within the organization about how LaMelo Ball could be a person of interest for them. So we bring this up, and I think, sure, it's noteworthy to mention that Golden State wants LaMelo Ball, but at the same time, it's not all that newsworthy because I would like Steph Curry. I wonder if the Hornets, but I haven't called Golden State either. I haven't called Golden State myself, but I would like to have Steph Curry on this team with LaMelo Ball. So, look, if Golden State wants him, great. It's noteworthy in the sense of Golden State is in a position where they might want to make some moves to try to squeeze every ounce of talent out of Steph Curry as much as possible before he hangs him up. But what does this mean to you that Golden State might have had conversations about LaMelo Ball internally?
As much as I don't want to see LaMelo move on from the Hornets, or the Hornets to move on from LaMelo, rather, I think it's good when your best players are wanted. We're old enough to remember a Hornets organization where it was reported that they could not move any of they tried to move their assets. They went to teams and said, hey, this is what we have. Would you like it? And those teams almost to a man said, no, we're good. That's okay. You guys keep on trucking.
We don't have any all-stars on this team.
Right. That's the clip. So it's nice that they have assets like that. And we paired this, we compared this with the Spurs, I think, actually made a call on LaMelo Ball when they were pursuing De'Aaron Fox. Of course, they secure Fox, but I think the Hornets said, nah, we're good. We're good on LaMelo. We're not interested in shopping him right now. And I think had Golden State called, Jeff Peterson would have listened. He seems like a listener to things. He seems like a caller about things. But I think he would have also said no. I think the Hornets are comfortable moving forward with LaMelo. But as this whole storyline with Charlotte progresses, do they get better with LaMelo? Do the injuries keep piling up? How does this whole thing play out? You know, they may need to pick the phone back up at some point. So it's good to know that there are teams that are interested, and it's also good to know that the Hornets, for now, are saying no.
Yeah, but the Spurs, Doug, the Spurs did not only have internal conversations, but they also did reach out to Charlotte.
Yeah.
And San Antonio, again, going after De'Aaron Fox eventually for what I thought was a little bit less it wasn't a crazy amount less, but it was still less than what I thought he was going to go for, right? Because it was the faux third round or first rounder we talked about, because that pick is not going to convey. The Hornets are going to be in the lottery, and it's going to be their selection to use. And so really it's 2 first round picks going to Sacramento in exchange for De'Aaron Fox and then Zach LaVine in all of it as well. But if you were to trade for LaMelo, I know that the trade package would be it's tough to get a start as to what it would be to get LaMelo, but LaMelo is somebody that I do think would be interesting for San Antonio. So I can understand why they actually did make the call, given their pivot to try to go after a point guard.
Well, it would have to be more than the Fox deal, right? And so Sacramento, their hand was forced. Thankfully, LaMelo has not forced the Hornets' hand yet. But there's another factor to throw into this whole thing, is that you're in a much better position as a franchise if you do feel like you have to move on from a certain guy that's going to command multiple first round picks. Better to do that on your terms than to do it on a player's terms. Because once it becomes a player's term and they say, well, I'm only going to re-sign with a certain team. Once De'Aaron Fox became extension eligible, then he had some leverage. He could go to he could go to the franchise and say, I don't want to be here anymore, and here's where I want to go. I want to go to San Antonio. If other teams call about me, sure, you can trade me, but I'm going to tell that team I ain't re-signing. And so that's going to discourage them that's going to discourage maybe the level of interest, but also the package that you can get back, because they know that they're only going to have me for a year. So it has to be more than what Sacramento got back, which was Zach LaVine, right, a fake first round pick, and 2 kind of iffy first round picks. It would have to be something more significant for that if the Hornets decided to move on from him now.
Yeah, I had computer issues through that whole LaMelo take. That's why I froze myself. Like, my computer froze and I froze in real time with it. We were both doing the same thing, and it completely it got me off track with my point. But that was my point, was basically the question being, would you make that deal if that package was coming to Charlotte in exchange for LaMelo? And my answer would be no. I would not trade LaMelo for a fake first rounder, 2 first rounders from San Antonio, and Zach LaVine. I'm not trading LaMelo for that package. And especially if the team that wants him is San Antonio and they got some other stuff I want. Like, yeah, okay, if you want to give me a fake first, first. Like, it's got to be real, or it could be Castle. But you got to choose. Like, you can't just keep all of your fun, young, interesting players and give me a fake first in exchange for what is my star point guard, which is why I did find it interesting at the beginning of all of this as a measuring point of what is LaMelo going to be worth. Because if that's what De'Aaron Fox is worth, he's got the better health record, but the three-point shot is different from LaMelo. It's worse. I do think LaMelo and Wemby would be just bananas, the electric factory, watching those 2 guys play with one another. And I think San Antonio knows that. I think the pick and roll game between De'Aaron and Wemby is going to be dynamite, but also like the pick and pop game. De'Aaron shooting off of that. It's not as strong as if LaMelo was shooting off of that. And LaMelo can make every single freaking pass on the court. Contrary, De'Aaron can just throw it up to Wemby because he's 7'4", so now that opens up your angles. But LaMelo being 6'8", and then throwing it to anybody, yeah, man, it's those 2 would be amazing. But no, it's only going to happen in Charlotte. It can't happen in San Antonio. It can only happen in Charlotte if those 2 are going to team up.
Well, there will be other suitors. I think you can look at the Rockets, the Clippers in the future, not this coming trade season, but in the future, because I think like the Lakers are off the board now as long as Luka stays healthy. I think now with Fox going to San Antonio, you can take them off the board. But there will be other suitors, and that's the point here. Mm-hmm. And so I think the Hornets as a franchise, they're much better off over the next season or 2 continuing to explore what a winning team in Charlotte looks like with LaMelo Ball. But once it gets to a year, 2 years away from the extension, that's when things are going to get dicey, particularly if LaMelo is interested in winning and the Hornets aren't doing so, and they're not, doing everything they can to put talent around him. That's when things get interesting. And you don't, as a franchise, you don't want to, if you don't think you can put a winner around LaMelo in the next couple of seasons, then I think it would honestly be smarter for the Hornets to explore moving him because he is on the big contract. And that's what these teams are doing. I mean, I don't think Dallas was very smart, to say the least, from moving on from Luka when they did. I mean, 25 years old, all NBA 5 times. It's like nuts. But you can put it in this bucket of like trends that we're seeing in the NBA right now, which is that teams don't want to pay players supermaxes or maxes if there are question marks, because once you lay that deal down and then you put another deal on top of it and then you put a couple of smaller deals around it, all of a sudden, because of the CBA, now your picks are frozen. Now, when you trade, you have to aggregate salaries, and it's got to be 1 for 1. There are all these restrictions now. And so teams understand, team building wise, if you lay down that max money, if you lay down that extension, you better be certain that that player is going to work out. And there are enough question marks around LaMelo where I think the team should, again, if they don't think they can put a winner around him in the next couple of seasons, then they should seriously consider what they can do to move him.
Or be certain that another team is willing to pay that supermax, and then you could get all of the picks and the swaps in exchange, and then know that you can start a potential rebuild if necessary, the right kind of way. And if you don't think that another team would be willing to pay that supermax because you have issues with your star player and it might not be working out in the next year and a half, 2 years, and now another team is only going to give you a De'Aaron Fox type deal, yeah, you're right. Like, you got to be, either you have to pay for it, you have to be certain that you can pay for it and win, or you have to be certain another team thinks that they can pay for it and win. And that latter is just as important. Coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast.
Bees everywhere!
What's this new model for the Hornets? Doug is bringing this to the table. I'm interested in this. Doug Branson, new model for the Charlotte Hornets. And then, you know it, baby, we're going to the Sicko Satchel in the last segment of the Locked On Hornets podcast. All still to come. This episode is brought to you by Game Time. Game Time?
Game Time?
Looking for tickets to your next big event, whether it's a concert, a comedy show, or a sports game, finding the right ticket at the right price can be a headache. A sports game makes me sound like I don't do a podcast every day about sports. Sports game. Oh, did you see the news on the sports game last night? It was sports.
The old sports ball.
Oh, sportsin'. But with Game Time Picks, it's never been easier. Let me tell you how it works. With Game Time Picks, the app does all the hard work for you. It curates the best deals so you don't have to waste time searching through endless ticket listing. You can use Game Time Picks, and it gives you curated deals. It makes it simpler to find great tickets at a great price. No more sifting through thousands of options anymore. You could grab a super deal for a prime seat, and you can get great value on it. The seat view feature is a game changer, and before you even hit buy, you can see exactly what your seat will look like in the venue. It's reassuring for the customer, and the best part, you're covered with Game Time's lowest price guarantee. If you find a better deal somewhere else, they'll refund 110% of the difference, plus your tickets are guaranteed to be delivered on time with easy cancellation options if something comes up. If there's another sports game that comes up, then you can cancel your tickets to the other sports game and go to the other sports game if you want to. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONNBA. Locked On NBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. More Locked On Hornets ahead. A new model for the Hornets. Doug thinking hard about it if you're watching us on YouTube. Speak to me, Doug. What you got for us?
Before we get to that, have you seen this video that the Charlotte Hornets posted yesterday on their X account that just says tomorrow, house emoji, and then there's a video of Lute, a rapper from Charlotte, North Carolina, who's signed to Dreamville Records, which is the J. Cole record company or record. I don't know what. I'm going to show my age here. I don't know a lot of this stuff.
Oh, they're going to the sports game. Is what they're doing.
They're going to the sports game. They're signing with the record company. But anyway, they all look in there's the 4 guys and they all look in a trunk and they're like, yeah, that's awesome. It's kind of it's a Tarantino. I don't know if it's an ode to Tarantino, but it's a very Tarantino shot of opening the trunk, looking and being amazed at something that we don't see. And then it's the classic Hornets logo that comes up at the end. And then we saw the classic Charlotte name. What's going on here?
I actually don't know, Doug. I know some people have hypothesized it's basically just going to be like an old logo rollout on something, but I really don't know. I don't have a good guess on this. Sometimes you can figure stuff out, but I don't necessarily have a good guess on this. Interesting.
I don't either.
Do you have any
if it's
guesses?
another jersey, I'm out. I'm done with the jerseys. Honestly, like the nostalgia piece of this, the logo kind of scares me. I'm done with the nostalgia. I've had this rant on this show before. I am ready to win. I am ready to create a culture now, Hornets DNA now, about this team, not about teams in the 90s or aughts. I love those teams. Obviously, I have Baron Davis and Jamal Mashburn's jerseys in the rafters here in the studio, but like that's for me. I'm done with that's for my home. I'm done with that. I want the fan base to experience something now. Let's put the focus there. It's hard to with all the injuries and all the losing, but that transitions me. That segues into what I wanted to throw at you, and I haven't briefed you on this, so we're just going to kind of talk to this for a second, then we can get back to trade rumors. The Portland Trailblazers. I know that people listening to this show, and Walker, maybe you haven't either. They play on the West Coast. I know that a lot of people probably don't know what's going on in Portland right now, and they've been losing for a long time, like the Charlotte Hornets. So you might not know what's going on right now. But Portland has won 9 of their last 10 games. They've won 5 in a row. They are on an absolute heater. They're healthy. All of their young players are playing. And now there's a serious question of like, are they going to buy or sell at the deadline? And I'm looking at this team, and you know what I see? I see ball handlers everywhere. Everyone on that team can handle the ball somewhat, enough to get it up to half court, to get into transition. I see physical bigs all over the floor. I see DeAndre Ayton finally playing up to his talent level and what we expected him to be. And they draft Donovan Clingan. He's a beast down there. He's a monster. He's knocking guys out of the way. 4 shooters around those 2 bigs all the time. And so I'm looking at this and I'm going, yeah, like that's, if you're talking about giving Charles Lee the kind of personnel that he needs to execute all the things that he's been talking about, look no further than what Portland has put together. That team's got problems. They're not like ready to compete in a playoff series, but they're sort of hitting around the things that the Charlotte Hornets need to be thinking about.
Yeah, so they got started by already having Simons on the team. When they make that shift and they trade Donovan, when they trade Damian Lillard, they already have Simons, so they split those 2 guys up. You already have Shaedon Sharpe, who was this young, crazy, athletic, interesting player that also is much bigger in person, by the way. When we're talking about what I watch on TV and how they look in person, Sharpe has among the biggest disparities there. It's like, oh my God, you are a brick house, sir. So Shaedon Sharpe, you're right. He's huge, and he's just a really strong athlete. And you're right, like all these ball handlers is something that I would like to have on the Hornets. It's always been a model for me, just having a whole bunch of creators, right? It's when we look at the draft, that's why I've always liked the idea of pairing another ball handler right next to LaMelo, so they're not so reliant on LaMelo all the time that he doesn't have to have be in the 100th percentile in usage rate, and you can still be a functioning offense, and you can have some really interesting secondary ball handling that turns into a legitimate primary ball handler. When LaMelo goes to the bench, now you have somebody that you can stagger. And I'm not talking about staggering stars even, because sure, go get another star that handles the basketball all the time. Oh yeah, it's just you and every single other team in the NBA that wants that. Yes, I understand. But just having another primary ball handler that can be that secondary guy when LaMelo goes to the bench or gets injured, or something that I've always wanted to explore is kicking out to LaMelo on catch and shoot opportunities where that other guy draws the defense in and then just allows LaMelo a little bit more space. Yes, 100%. It's always been a model that I would love to follow. I think we've preached both, wanting to follow at least that specific portion of your model, having ball handlers around LaMelo so that LaMelo can still be the lead guard. Like, I'm not trying to take away his number one responsibility. I'm not trying to do that. I'm trying to help LaMelo as much as possible via space and just good God, you don't have as much responsibility anymore, my man. Breathe easy and chuck a couple threes with space, please. That's what I would love to see.
Speaking of chucking threes, Donovan Clingan is doing that. He's taking less than 1 a game. He's shooting 27% overall. But if you go to cleaning the glass, which takes out garbage time, which I'm sure Portland has played its fair share of garbage time, just like the Hornets, that goes up to 33%. So when it matters, he's able to knock down some open threes, and I think he's going to get better. I was big on I think Klingon might be able to shoot. I think you were a little bit more down on that. It's still
for sure. It's still
TBD. It's still TBD. Like, I'm not saying he can. I'm saying at least he's throwing them up. And I'll tell you another thing. Mark Williams better be thanking his lucky stars that the Hornets decided to swing for the fences on Tijan Salan, which absolutely could still work out much better than Donovan Klingon for the Hornets. But I think Klingon would have taken the starting job by now.
Maybe with physicality, I do think offensively they would have been a lot more limited, because it's not like Klingon is doing anything interesting in Portland offensively, but he is playing with more physicality, so you would have to switch it up there. I do think Mark would still be getting plenty of minutes. The thing about Mark is, I think we're flipped on Klingon and Mark's shooting ability. I'll be interested to see if Donovan keeps this up, but also I think he's getting more opportunity, which is great. So I don't know if he'll ever be able to shoot, but I know if you're Portland, explore that now. Who cares if you're just going to suck? Just let him shoot 28%, 33% from three. But Mark isn't shooting any of that. And I think that's because there's not as many opportunity, or it's not being as harped on in practice, where we did see him even shoot some of those 15-footers. But we've belabored that point so much. I think it's about opportunity and what's being harped on, because Klingon sucked at shooting in college. Remember Walker Kessler? We tried to do this thing. We tried to do this thing with Walker Kessler at Carolina, where his dad tells the coach, hey, we would love to explore shooting threes a little bit more so. Why aren't you letting him do it? He goes to Auburn, doesn't shoot well at Auburn, but in the NBA, it's going to come around. Nope. Still isn't shooting very well from three in the NBA. I think he's shooting 40%, but it's 0.1 per game. So it's on small volume, and that might have changed since the last time I looked up his stats. When we tried to make this a thing for Klingon, it was the classic, he's hitting shots in an open gym with nobody 15 feet in front of him, or even with anybody in 15 feet of him. So great. Shooting 28%. Honestly, keep exploring that. I'd like to explore that myself here. If Mark is shooting 75, 77% from free throw line, well, guess what is the math nerd's greatest indicator of a good shooter? It's that. Let's explore that a little bit more. I would love to see just the opportunity of him letting it fly from deep.
All right. I don't want to sink our teeth into, I don't want to become, you can go to Locked On Blazers and check out Mike Richmond, who's a Carolina fan. I think it might be a Carolina grad, honestly. And so you can check out what he thinks about the team. It's interesting. They could blow it all up. And I think the bottom line for me on the Portland and Charlotte comparisons is that it begins and ends with drafting Scoot Henderson.
I knew it was going to come that way. Yeah, that's what I was afraid of immediately. I was afraid of
the Scoot wagon. It's on the loose in Portland. He's playing well, man. I mean, they still got him off the bench. That's what they have to figure out. Who are they dumping so that, including Chauncey Billups, so that maybe not after this winning streak, but who are they dumping so that they can give Scoot a little bit more opportunity, because he's finally figuring it out, man. It's cool.
Yeah, he's playing a lot better for sure. So, okay. Be like Portland. Yeah, be like them. We got to make sure that they keep climbing.
Understand what I'm saying on that, which is that they've got size all over the floor. They've got playmaking, ball handling all over the floor, and they have two physical bigs. They've also been somewhat healthy this season, and they're the healthiest they've been all season right now. And they're playing well. So you can take that as well. Like, if the Hornets were fully healthy, they'd be playing a lot better than they are right now. But man, I mean, just depth-wise, they look good. I just want things for the Hornets. And when I look at Portland, when I study them, I go, yeah, that's what I want.
Well, I mean, and if you want to use one more Portland example, DeAndre Ayton was not a physical player in Phoenix, which is why it didn't work out, and now he is. So if you want can you become a physical player? Yeah, I think you can. All right, coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast.
Bees everywhere!
There's another trade rumor I want to get to, an actual report, actually, that involves the Hornets. Plus, we can get to the Sicko Satchel questions as well. That's still to come here on LOH. This episode is brought to you by BetterHelp. What are some of your relationship green flags? We often hear about the red flags we should avoid, but what if we focus more on identifying the positive signs in our relationships, those green flags? If you're not sure what they look like, therapy can help you identify them, actively practice them, and even embody that green flag energy for yourself. Whether you're dating, married, building a relationship, building a friendship, just working on yourself, therapy can help you form those relationships that love you back. BetterHelp makes it easy by offering online therapy with over 30,000 licensed therapists to choose from. And if you need to switch therapists, you can do so at no extra cost. Discover your relationship green flags with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, H-E-L-P, BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA. More Locked On Hornets ahead. All right, another report here from Michael Scotto of Hoops Hype, Doug. And the Hornets have been contacted by other teams about the availability of one Cody Martin. We saw Caleb Martin, we saw the twin traded from Philadelphia to Dallas. When you saw that, when you were scrolling and you saw the picture come up before you, because sometimes you scroll, it depends on which direction you scroll, but if you scrolled a certain direction, Caleb Martin's head showed up and I went, and then I saw the jersey, I went, ugh. It didn't happen to me. No, I saw Caleb pretty quickly and then I saw the face, so that did not happen, but wrong twin. They look so similar. It's ridiculous, especially when they had their hair the same way. Everything was the same. So they're twins that embrace looking exactly like one another. They're obviously very close. But anyways, 20. Caleb Martin gets traded to Dallas in exchange for Quentin Grimes. There's even a pick attached to Quentin Grimes to Philly. A lot of people scratching their head about that one. But Cody Martin has also been, I guess there are teams showing interest in Cody Martin as well. The Bucks, the Lakers, the Nuggets. That's what Mike Scotto is reporting of Hoops Hype. So interesting there, Doug. Could be a guy that's on the move. Yeah, the Lakers, they still need wing so they went into the trade deadline needing two things. They needed wing defense and they needed a center. And so they traded for Luka Doncic, which is he's neither a wing that can defend or a center. And so if they want to do anything this season, which I'm not sure they really do, I think they may just want to prepare themselves for next season when they really go after it with Luka. Then Cody Martin can satisfy one of those things. The Hornets have one of those things that they could provide to the Lakers. Unfortunately, they gave away Christie in the Max Christie, who I was salivating over. I really wanted the Hornets to look at that as a trade possibility. They gave him up to Dallas. He had a good debut game last night. But all these teams make sense for Cody Martin, and we'll just see if the Hornets can get something done. What I'm hearing is that the Hornets are actively shopping, and this won't be a shock to anyone who's been paying attention to this show and the Hornets for a while, but they're actively shopping Miles Bridges, Cody Martin, Vasilije Micić. Those are the three names that are constantly coming up in Hornets trade talks. Okay. I would say one, I got another Sicko Satchel question for you. Okay. If the Lakers, you've been really, I don't even think, I'm checking my invoices. I don't think you've paid for your Sicko Brigade subscription, and you keep dumping questions in here. I pay every day working with you. I pay every single day. My question for you in the Sicko Satchel is what do you make of teams looking to contend all being interested in Cody Martin? The Bucks, the Lakers, and the Nuggets as the teams being interested. Does that make you raise an eyebrow and be like, well, hold on, he's mine? or clearly you could hold their feet to the fire and then give up more assets to trade him, right? Like I know Cody Martin is not untouchable by any means, but does it say anything that contenders are contacting you about wanting Cody Martin to be on their squad? No, because wing defenders are going to be the most coveted thing for the next couple of seasons, but particularly ones that are okay at shooting threes. I mean, if you can get a great three-point shooter who can play defense, that's awesome. But those wing defenders are still super valuable right now, and they're just not a lot of them to go around. And all of the rest of the contenders are holding on to theirs for obvious reasons. So no, the Bucks, the Lakers, the Nuggets, like when you look at those teams and what they need, wing defense, check. Like Middleton falling apart, his body falling apart for the Bucks.
That's hurt them. The Lakers having to move on from certain players and also really not having a ton to begin with. And then also, I think Cody Martin particularly could help the Lakers because he can handle the ball too. We talked about this in the last episode when someone asked, like, what's the difference between Cody Martin and Josh Green? And the difference to me is offensive versatility. Like, Josh Green can handle it a little bit, but like Cody can initiate offense, and he's shown that in prior years. And so, no, it does not surprise me at all. In fact, I want the Hornets to come back with a decent return for Cody Martin. I'm not going to be satisfied with, 2 seconds or like so particularly a bad second pick, a bad second rounder. Maybe if they're like really good second rounders that look like they could be early second round picks, then maybe that's okay. And maybe they can satisfy a player need that they have within that. But, even like a heavily protected first, I don't think is honestly out of the question because there's not going to be a ton of movement at this deadline, I don't think. And so the prices can be a little bit higher, I think.
Well, okay, I didn't articulate my question well. I'm not asking if you're surprised that contenders want him. I'm asking, does that make you raise an eyebrow as the Hornets and say, well, okay, if wing defenders are going to be the most coveted archetype player over the next couple of years, as a Hornet squad, should we want to have still one of the most coveted archetype players over the next couple of years rather than trading him for a couple of second-round picks, most likely? That's my question.
No.
If the contenders want that guy. Like, it's not Trailblazers, it's not bad teams that often make bad personnel decisions that are knocking on the door saying, hey, we'll give you a decent amount for Cody. It's good teams looking to contend right now for that guy. That's my question. It was like, hey, maybe we should just keep him for when we're ready to take that jump. And then now we have a nice role player depth that matters on top of these hopeful young stars that pan out.
Well, so you just hit on it there. When they're ready, they're not on that timeline right now. To me, there is a natural evolution of these teams, and the Hornets have way bigger needs than like, ooh, we don't have enough wing defense. I mean, we talked about not having enough. Like, they can't get into offensive sets correctly. Too many plays are breaking down offensively, and then defensively, they don't have enough physicality inside to keep teams away from the rim. Those are two glaring holes that you have to address before you can even get into some kind of mode where it's like, we might need a wing defender. No. Like, they've got Josh. If they didn't have Josh Green, I would agree with you. They've got Josh Green, and I think Tijan Salon can develop into somebody that you could put. He looks like he can be a versatile defender. So I think they've got some things in the pipeline where they won't have to worry about that right now. They've got to address those bigger holes.
Yeah, and I'm just asking questions. I'm not saying don't trade Cody. I'm asking questions as to why.
I think people would naturally ask that question. Like, wait a minute, if that's coveted, why would the Hornets give it up? And it's like, who's coveting it? It's teams that already have those other holes patched that are saying, oh, we need that thing. So the Hornets have to be able to function as an offense and function as a defense. Cody Martin does not by himself do that. But what they could bring back and then the assets that they could use coming back to then go and get those players to fill those holes, that would be more valuable to the Hornets than anything that Cody Martin can provide over the next couple of seasons.
Okay. What other Sicko Satchel question do you have? I promise I won't hog the mic.
Rocky from Salisbury, with the trade deadline approaching, it's tomorrow, there is likelihood of Charlotte serving as a facilitator party to a big trade by taking on existing contracts, typically mid-level like Josh Green this past summer. Who are a couple of players out there within this type of contract that you'd love to see dealt over to Charlotte in the next couple of weeks? Some players that come to mind. Yeah.
I was going to say, anytime I bring up a list, my internet gets a little wonky and then I freeze up along with my computer. So I don't want to do that, Doug, if you want to bring up a list of players that might fit that bill.
I mean, I'll say Christie was on my list. Obviously, he's gone now. I mean, Okoro is the name that I just keep coming back to. If they can find a way to facilitate. And with Cleveland, I don't think it's going to be so much a deal that nets Cleveland something. I don't think they want to pay the tax. They're going to be the team. Right. There's always a team every year that is contending, that's moving in the right direction, that says, yeah, but if we just move one piece, all their fans, everyone in Cleveland right now, particularly because I think they're like 6-4 over their last 10, they're not like playing their best basketball after that incredible start. all the fans in Cleveland are going, what is Cleveland going to do to upgrade the roster to make sure that they can beat the Celtics and and Cleveland's going to be like, nah, we just don't want to pay that extra money. So bye-bye Isaac Okoro, bye-bye whatever. They've got some young talent too that they could ship in exchange for future assets. So that's where I wouldn't even be mad at the Hornets. You know, some of these maybe it's the second round pick that they got back from OKC. Whatever needs to happen, even if they spend a little capital to go out and get an Okoro, who, you know, is somebody that has, I think, size and shooting that it would complement the rest of this roster well. If you are going to move on from Cody Martin, then there you go. You filled that depth piece right away. I like that move for sure.
So I decided to look up the contracts on my phone so I would not mess with the computer. Yeah, it's the name that makes the most sense. Other names that are just fringe, surface level, maybe that's something that could happen, but I doubt it. Mo Wagner, if Orlando's going after a star and they need to get off some money, Mo Wagner's making $11 million. Do you trade him? The Hornets could use shooting big, a guy that's a little bit of an instigator. You might hate him as a Hornets fan. I get that. You know, we've
and
got
just,
some
you know
beef.
what? And honestly, just split up those Wagners in Orlando. I'm tired of playing both of those guys 4 times a season. They're annoying. I'd rather have one of them join the Hornets and be annoying for us than to face those two Wagners again for 4 times.
Plus, we'll need somebody that has a brother in the NBA if we get rid of Cody, so that checks that box off. So I'm glad that we'll go after him. Another one that's interesting, would the Hornets be willing to, this is not a useful player, I think, particularly, would you absorb the $9 million contract for Pat Connaughton? Because it's going to be a player option at 25-26.
Pat Connaughton?
He's out of the rotation up in Milwaukee right now, and that's a team looking to contend. So if they want Cody, then do you trade Cody Martin in exchange for Pat Connaughton? Really, it's just contract absorption, and then you also have Milwaukee attach whatever to Pat, so you take on that money. Now, the problem is, their bigger priority is to get off of Chris Middleton's contract, so they're going to have to attach some stuff with the Middleton contract. Is there going to be enough attractive pieces left over to attach to a Pat? Like, Milwaukee's in a bad spot with what they're trying to move off of right now. So I guess that's my question is, what are you going to do with the Chris Middleton stuff, and then will you have enough left over to attach something really enticing to Pat? That would be my question.
Here's another interesting name. Final thing here from Adam in the Sicko Brigade. By the way, join the Sicko Brigade. Join subtext.com/Locked On Hornets 14-day free trial. And you can text me directly and get your questions into the satchel. Adam says, who do you think the Hornets could trade for that would fit well, both timeline and roster? I like a trade into an extension for John Collins. LaMelo Loco to John the Baptist feels like must-see TV. The problem, of course, is Danny Ainge. You've got to trade with Danny Ainge, and that's always difficult, has been historically for the Hornets. Yeah, so John making $26.5 this year. He's got a player option, so he's up for an extension. You could go ahead and get that deal done if you wanted to. What do you think about John Collins?
Yeah, John Collins would be interesting as well. That would be, I guess, what Miles Bridges would be going out with some contract matching, just trying to figure out the money on all of that. Anytime you're getting up into the 17s, the past 15, how much is Collins making?
He's making 26.5, I think I said.
So Miles would be the guy then, right? Like, if you're just trying to contract match. I guess, I don't know about the 3-team stuff.
You'd have to say, well, the thing about John is he's playing awesome for Utah, who's rebuilding. So you'd have to spend some capital. You'd have to give up a first rounder. I mean, that'd cost you money. Or at least draft capital. So
I can like John Collins and also not want to give up a first for him. And that's
83rd percentile in points per shot. I mean, he is having an awesome year. It would be great, but you'd be buying high. You know, if he falls back down to earth next season and you've given up a first round pick or 2 first round picks, then you're kicking yourself in the pants.
Final name for me, Zeke Naji. Is this the time? After being thrown around so many times, this Denver interested? They want Cody bad enough? Give us Zeke. Give us a pick. And I know Zeke, he played well last night, if I'm not mistaken. I think I saw somebody say that, even though he's not getting a lot of minutes this year. So anyways, all right, that'll do it. Thanks for making us your first listen. We're free. We're available anywhere you get your podcast. That includes YouTube. There's Doug Branson. Find him on everyhornetsboxscore.com. He's also on Locked On NBA. Matt Moore, Hayes, talking ball with those guys nationally. So he'll have a national perspective on the NBA trade deadline as well. I'm Walker Mail. Listen to me on WFNZ every weekday from 12 to 3 p.m. Have a great rest of your day. We'll be back with you tomorrow for trade deadline day.